CFB Nation. I'm your host, Nino Brown, and I got two gentlemen that I've been talking to all year about Boston College football. I'm not going to be talking too much. I'm just going to be your host. I'm going to let these gentlemen talk about it because if I start talking, it's going to be a real negative show really quickly. So up first, it's the man, the CEO of Eagles Daily. That'd be Brett Ryder. How we doing this evening?
Yeah, good. Could be better. Told you, was telling you off air. Lost my AirPods case. So, with this new technology, you can't just steal someone else's case from the gym and use it.
Now that's frowned upon. You know what I mean? That's what they make you do is they buy a new one, so now you got two, even though you only need one, right? and the man, the myth, the legend, the guy who has no time, doesn't sleep. If he sleeps, it's with his eyes open. That's Kevin Stone from the New England Football Journal, and he also does a piece on Boston College on Rivals. How we doing, Kevin?
Good, boys. How you guys doing?
You know how it is, man. I missed you guys on Friday. We'll talk a little bit about that.
You didn't miss anything.
Seems like it's kind of been like that for the last couple of weeks, but that's neither here nor there. I'm gonna hit you guys both with rapid fire questions before we start getting into the BC Eagles. I'm gonna start off with Kevin, and we'll just go back and forth right down the list. All right, Kevin. Give me your college football playoff right now.
Pretty chalk. I'm gonna go Georgia, Michigan, Florida State, Washington. It's just they're the best teams, I think. I think talent-wise, and I know Jordan Travis going down for Florida State hurts, but having seen them against BC, and obviously you guys both did as well, the talent across the board is still elite. So I'd be shocked if they lose to Louisville. And again, it's straightforward for me.
All right, I love it. Brett, what's your playoff right now?
That's exactly the same. I will say that I think that this is probably one of the strongest 4-team playoffs that they've had in many years, where usually in the past, the fourth team is kind of usually the Cincinnati or, whatever the case, kind of the left man out. But it looks like these four are going to be strong contenders. So I'm pretty excited to see how it shakes out.
You guys know me. I love the smoke. So I said, oh, yeah, Texas would be in the playoff. And even after the loss, I still believe they'll be in the playoff. So give me Texas. Give me Michigan. When Georgia loses to Alabama, you can give me Alabama. And when Washington loses to Oregon, you can give me Oregon. And that's your playoff right there for me. All right. Heisman winner. Brett, give it to me.
I mean, I would have said Jordan Travis before.
But
he's done now. I don't know. That's a good question. I'm not really sure.
All right. Kev?
As much as I don't believe in him anymore, Caleb Williams put the best season together, I think. So I'd probably give it to him. Although the past couple of weeks between the crying and the other stuff, it's tough to really believe in him as sort of a QB1 going forward. But in terms of the question, I still think it's him.
Again, I love the smoke. He's been my guy since he sucked at Auburn. So I'm going Bo Nix because he can't miss. 78.1% completion percentage. Got to be good for something. I know the consensus is Jaden Daniels, but I got to stick with Bo. In 2 words, describe the 2023 BC football season. Kevin, you go first.
Mediocre and disappointing. When you're 6-3 and you end up 6-6, that's the definition of mediocre and the definition of disappointing. So it's hard to call this season anything else.
Brett.
Up, down. When you start 1-3, rattle off 5 in a row, and then hit a clunker to lose 3 in a row. And not only just, lose 3 in a row, but, to get blown out twice at home and then, lose to a hapless Pittsburgh team, pretty demoralizing. Like the win streak was fun and all, the whole path, little movement on Twitter, that was great. But just, 2 downs and 1 up does not make for very successful. They can't call it successful whatsoever. So yeah, up, down. That's it.
The first word that comes to my mind right off the rip is chaos. Game 1 was just chaos for this whole season. And I'm going to go with wave. They rode waves. It was waves of being good and waves of just being real bad. I think Tommy Castellano nailed it on the head when he said that they got complacent and comfortable once they got 6 and got known for bowl eligibility. And he says they can't have that. Well,
That bothered me. I don't know if we're going to talk about that a little bit, but that comment bothered me.
Yeah, well, we'll get to that. I wouldn't let that one die. That's for sure. Tommy Castellanos is Brett.
I mean, he's the future. I believe you asked me this question last time I was on. And I believe I had, a very enthusiastic answer for you. I mean, he's definitely our guy. He's definitely our, I would say, face of the program now. Kind of based on, it's not really a sample size anymore, kind of like a full body of work. It's I mean, yeah, he's the future, but I don't know how much stock we can continue to have in him overall. I mean, great kid, but yeah, he seems like he just is what he is. He's a playmaker. Has a lot to work on though too.
Kevin, Thomas Castellanos is
a work in progress. I was with you, Brett, up until about 3 weeks ago. I thought this kid was I wrote it a few times. BC needs to give him houses and cars, whatever it took to keep him here. I don't know if I believe that now. I do still think he's a program changer, but man, this kid's not a passer. He's a runner that plays quarterback at this point. I think we saw it the last 3 weeks. Some of his decision making, just his arm strength overall, and the team's lack of a downfield passing game. It's terrifying. Like, yeah, the kid can make plays with his legs, but if that's all you got, it's a problem because teams started to figure him out and really keep him contained the last 3 weeks. So could he be the future? Could he be a future Heisman candidate? Could he be, a future superstar? Sure, but he's got a long way to go.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to touch on this in a little bit. I don't want to drag it out because I got some comments for what you guys had to say here, but we'll get to Tommy in a little bit. Boston College finished the regular season 6-6 and 9th in the ACC, which is absolutely gross. Most recently, a 45-20 blowout loss at Alumni Stadium to Miami. There was so much preseason buzz around the team finally being healthy. All we heard about was we're loaded in the trenches, and that the schedule looked pretty winnable. That was a lot of what we talked about. There was a lot of winnable games. On a level of 1 to 10, how bad of a disappointment has this season been, and why? Brett, you go first.
Okay, so I'm gonna give it a 9. Part of me wants to say it wasn't a disappointment because, like, at this point, like, we all should have known that this is what was going to happen based on what we've seen over the last 15 years. I wrote about it before the season, though. I mean, the schedule was not pretty winnable. The schedule was absolutely phenomenally, incredibly winnable. Like this schedule was an extra 2 wins as opposed to any other schedule. I truly believe that if you put whether it was last year's schedule or next year's schedule with this team, like you're probably looking at like a 4-win team in that schedule. Like this schedule was very easy. The out of conference was super easy. You really didn't have like the tough game, whether it was, I mean, at Florida State, it was here and whatever, they lost. So, but you didn't have to go to Clemson, didn't have to go to Notre Dame. You didn't have to go to what's it called? Virginia Tech, Blacksburg. I mean, they still got blown out on that one too, but there were still a lot of things like it was set up for a very good schedule.
Favorable.
Yeah. You look at like the Northern Illinois game to start the year. That was a great warm-up game for them. I don't still to this day do not know how they lost that game. You just like go down it and it was all very favorable for them. And I think the Miami game is what kind of brought it all together for us, is the fact that like it was the end of November, it was after Thanksgiving. That should have been a competitive game, and it absolutely was not. I'll say it like I told you before in the booth, and I'm sure, Kevin, you heard these guys too. Like their media people were very obnoxious. They were loud, they were rowdy, whatever. But like one of the guys was like, "Oh, where's this team been all year?" And the guy was like, "Oh, well, they're playing Boston College." So that really just shows you the lack of respect that not only they have, but I'm sure other people have. So for a team that has not been able to win 8 games since I was in high school, it's extremely disappointing. And for a team that had not only 6, they were 6-3, and the fact that all 3 of those matchups were favorable, they should have been able to squeak out 1, if not 2 wins out of that and break that plateau finally. It's extremely disappointing. The only reason I didn't give it a 10 is because of that 5-game winning streak. That was fun in the moment, but yeah.
All right.
Yeah, no, it's a 10. 100% a 10. Again, not only was that the easiest schedule, it legitimately was the easiest Power 5 schedule in the country, according to preseason, kind of statistics. So that's not just, a saying. That was factual. They had the easiest schedule in the country and still went 6-6. Again, you mentioned the 5-game winning streak. We all overhyped it. At least I know I did. You and I talked in the press box, and you were shocked when I said that they might go 9-3 when they were 6-3. And I generally believe that because they had games like Syracuse, like like Pitt, like Virginia Tech at home. I had no idea that team was capable of just completely crapping the bed again after that win streak. And again, you guys know how I feel about Hafley. Hafley has been phenomenal to all of us in the media. He's a great dude. Answers any question you have. But at some point, you're just going to – yeah, exactly. At some point, you're going to ask, when does the message get stale? And I think it already has. The problem is, and I've said this for weeks, the people in the higher positions, sitting above him, the expectation is not, it's not an FCS playoff game or FBS playoff game. It is not 8 wins. It is bowl eligible, and then see what happens. And when you have no pressure on you, the team feels that. Castellanos has now said, we got complacent for 3 straight weeks. After the first week, I get it. But if you keep saying that after 3 embarrassing losses, that's on the staff. Like, figure it out, man. So there is a lackluster, I guess, sort of demeanor when it comes to the entire program, especially when it comes to losing. We were in there the other day. Those kids, Nedawak Paula was the only one that really felt down after the game. Hafley's tone, Castellanos' tone, it's always the same. It's, we'll get them next time, boys. And it's weak. It's weak at this point. And again, they've been great to us. But at some point, man, someone's going to flip the switch and make these kids and this staff feel some pressure because they just don't. And until then, they're going to keep playing in bowls like the Fenway Bowl, which is probably where they're headed. And it's sad because the bowl game is supposed to be,
Fun,
a reward.
Exciting.
Exactly. It's supposed to be a reward. A 10-minute drive down to Fenway on a Thursday morning is not a reward.
No.
And you see it. I know we're going to get to it, but you see how much it doesn't matter when you've got kids hopping in the portal left and right today. So it's bad, man. It was definitely a disappointing season. But again, that's what you get when expectations are what they are.
I'm going to go off the script here because we're talking about the elephant in the room and Hafley. And you guys made the comments about Tommy. And I can get down on these guys really quick. Kev. I've gone down on guys like this down the spiral hole. Like, hey, this guy stinks because he can't block. And then, 3/4 of suck. And then all of a sudden the next week, all of a sudden he's, the best blocker in the world. And I look like an idiot. But I said to you multiple weeks, both of you gentlemen, multiple weeks in that booth. We know that Thomas Castellanos doesn't have a strong arm. Why are they still scripting plays where the wide receivers on the outside are running 20, 25-yard outs or wheel routes? Why? Why did it take until Virginia Tech with Dino Tomlin was lined up in the slot? Why did it take before the 3-game losing streak where we started seeing bunch formations and trips to one side where you're getting the guys that clear out and bringing a guy underneath like Bond and Tomlin on short intermediate passes for Tommy? Yes, Tommy can only do so much. And I think he got a little bit excited in his Madden moments, okay? But when all else fails, And that line at some points was literally just saying hike and laying down. And this guy's running around every play for 4 quarters. It's not all on Tommy. Yeah, the interceptions were gross, but Hafley in the OC didn't do anything to adjust to the quarterback. This wasn't the game plan going into this. This is what none of us knew this. When you bring a guy down to Charlotte for ACC Media Day, everybody in the state of Massachusetts believes he's your guy. He threw 9 passes and you said he wasn't your guy anymore. I don't know if we can. Maybe Tommy doesn't deserve the Maserati, but I don't know if Tommy deserves the red carpet to the portal either. You know what I'm saying? So,
I think to your point, there's like 2 things that kind of come to my like thought process, especially with like the personnel. Like those receivers outside of Joe Griffin really aren't guys that you want like just running streak routes down the field either. Like,
right.
Like Lewis Bond is phenomenal across the middle. And Dino Tomlin proved that as a slot receiver, he's very dangerous as well. The other thing too was that first drive against Pitt when they ran it down their throat, it was like 38 yards or something. And then they finished the half with 38 yards rushing. Like they stopped running the ball. And that's what they did so well against Miami on that first drive to score a touchdown. And it's almost like they do this where like they start off hot on the ground and then they just like abandon it. And it was like both weeks. And I can't really speak to the Virginia Tech game because I attended that game as a fan and I just don't really remember the exact like play calls on that first initial drive or that touchdown when Robichaux scored that touchdown to go up 7-3. But it just seems like the play, like they don't have like an offensive philosophy anymore. And like they lost it. And it's like week 9 and 10, they're coming off a 5-game winning streak and they're still trying to figure out their offensive identity. It was really bizarre in my opinion. I don't really know.
They never had an identity ever. It was kind of fly by the seat of your pants identity. I felt all season. They rode what worked, but there never was really a game plan, right? And and to your point about the running, yeah, they'd come out and ground and pound. We seen it, Kev, right? A couple long drives start off the game where it's like, all right, 6-minute drive, 13 plays, going 60, 70 yards, getting, even if it was just 3, getting in the red zone and putting points on the board. And then they thought they was something they weren't after that. They got a little bit too big for their britches after they had a good, successful drive on the ground. And they thought they could just, we can just open up the playbook. The playbook was supposed to gradually every week get a little bit bigger for Tommy. I think once they started winning, they just threw the whole book at Tommy. And it was just like, all right, we ran the ball well. We got 30 yards on the ground. Let's try to open up the play and just air out. And well, now you're going 3 and out. But the other team was never going 3 and out. And that was always a problem. They're scoring and you won.
So to your point, backing up about Emmett Moorhead, look, I give Hafley credit because he admitted, look, they hadn't seen the kid throw the ball until they brought him in. Sure, they watched film, when he was in the portal, but even his film, there was like 15 throws total of all film they had. So I give him a pass in the terms of, they saw him kind of developing and pushing Moorhead in camp, but they needed to see more. So in order to see more, you got to throw the kid into the fire. Now, I think they did Emmett Moorhead dirty by at least not giving him a game to keep his feet under him. However, it was clearly the right move because Castellanos brought this offense ahead.
Right.
So I give them credit for making the move. But then the way they did it, I can, I severely question. Now, in terms of their identity, once Kai Robichaux pretty much was forced into a starting role, they found their identity. The offensive line is the only positive from the offense this year. They were dominant. From start to finish, they answered every question that was thrown their way.
In the run game.
Yeah, oh yeah, of course.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
They were and became a run-first team. But you mentioned not being able to open up the playbook. I think once you hit 5 straight wins, it was, okay, we can't screw this up.
Yeah.
Instead of, hey, let's add. It's all right. And Hafley talked about that numerous times, especially during the bye week. It was, excuse me, let's self-scout but let's not throw too much at these kids. And you know what? Maybe you should have. Maybe you
Yeah.
should have seen everything they could take in and then sort of pull it back after that. So, and the co-offensive coordinator thing, I think that's probably a little bit of a problem too.
Yeah.
There's probably too many voices. Both
Yeah.
guys, both Krasinski and Shimko, great guys. But look, Krasinski called NFL plays. He should have been controlling the offense the entire way.
Agreed.
And for all we know, he could have been. But when you present it as both guys running the show, it sort of looks that way at times too. So I think they did have an identity, but they didn't have that identity until what, week 8, week
Right.
9? And at that point, you're right. You can't open up the playbook. And Brett, to your original point, the receivers aren't that good. I rated them. I know we both did. I thought those guys were due for a huge year between Bond and Griffin, who absolutely disappeared this season. Jaden Skeet came on a little bit. Ryan O'Keefe obviously got hurt, but even he wasn't doing anything when he was healthy. Just a disappointing unit overall. They really need to hit the portal hard for receivers this year too.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We're going to talk real quick about Tom before we get into this portal topic that we just brought up. Castellanos brought excitement to Alumni Stadium, and I'm going to say probably for the first time since the Matty Ryan era. I mean, Phil just dibbled his toes in it, but then he got exposed really quick. What does Tommy touchdowns mean to BC on the field, but not just so much on the field and beyond? Do we keep him out of the portal? Is he a necessity to keep out of the portal?
Yeah.
And I'm going to play a little devil advocate here. Does BC win more than 6 games with Moorhead? Does the NIU and Virginia Tech games become W's? They were 110th in the pass in amount of passive attempts per game. They only had 42% of passing, 58% running, okay? They were, this is gross, 123rd in interceptions thrown percentage, 4%. Like that, there's only 132 teams. That means that there was only, you know what I mean, 11 teams that were worse than you. That's terrible. And they were 115 and completion percentage at 55. Does Emmett Moorhead get them over the hump? Would they get 6 with Emmett?
No.
I don't think so. I don't think so. It's one of those things. Yes, he got pulled up to 2 series or 1 series, but we all remember that first screen pass that he airmailed into the 3rd row.
Yeah.
So I think it's one of those things. We just sort of assumed that he was the guy and it'd be, good based on last year. We forget he's not that experienced either. So it's really hard to say. In terms of your question, Castellanos means everything off the field. I said this to you maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago. You do everything in your power to keep him in the portal. Now, they also get lucky because they'd have to clear waivers now, or fill out a waiver, I should say, since he already transferred once.
Right.
So I don't think he's going to go back in. So I think they're okay. If the situation ever came up, again, I repeat, cars, houses, plane rides, whatever this kid needs, you keep him, and not really on the field. For me, it's off the field because the attention he started to get nationally. If you're a kid hopping in the portal, and there's about to be about 5,000 of them total these next 2 weeks, that's a kid you want to play with. He's got swagger, he's got athletic ability, and frankly, he makes BC a fun place where it's really not that good of an atmosphere. Right. We've all talked about the atmosphere there. For an ACC school, it feels like a Patriot League school on game day.
High school.
Yeah, exactly. So the one thing that kid can do, and we already saw him, start to do, he creates buzz, and you can't buy buzz. Again, he needs to work on a lot of things to become a better passer. But even he acknowledged post-game the other day, this was really like a freshman year for him.
Right.
So he's only going to get better. They need to build around him and Kai Robichaud, frankly. That's your offense next year. And then receivers in the portal. But, they need to everything in their power to keep him. He is a program changer.
Brad, you agree with that? I agree with 100%. I feel like he has the possibility of bringing in what you need. And you can't afford to lose that. Wide receiver room stinks. But what is a guy that's mobile, leads the nation in rushing yards? you need a slot guy. You need a tight end that can chip
Yeah.
and get off. So this is a landing spot, I feel, for those type of quick wide receiver tight ends that look to be possession guys.
Well, not to mention, like, you look at like what Hergel and Taylor when they both came in last year. I mean, this is also going to be a offensive line destination now, especially if you're a team that's built on running the football. Where I think if you were, to go back to your Emmett Morehead question, it's like this team was not, unfortunately, they were not designed for an Emmett Morehead led offense right off the bat. Like, I really don't think that there was any sort of strength, whether it was with the offensive line. There was, like you said, Kevin, there's no receivers really of note, where Emmett Morehead is just kind of a downfield threat, grip it and rip it type of guy. I mean, that's what he was in 22 when he played, but he also had Zay Flowers, who he's able to successfully do that with. But yeah, I think that this team was definitely designed as more of a heavy running team. I think they got really, really, really lucky with the fact that Castellanos showed up the way he did. And also, they hit a home run with Kai Robichaud as well. Like, there's no reason to believe that this team would have been as successful as a running team without him as your go-to running back. And coming into the year, he wasn't even the running back, nor was he even the original transfer running back. The Virginia Tech kid was the kid that originally was supposed to come.
Basil Susan. Yeah.
Yeah. And that, it's funny because before I was like, had this website and was in the media, I was like, part of the Twitter brigade, and I was, watching him just get absolutely dragged on Twitter. So apologize for that. I didn't do it personally, but yeah. And then the other thing too is we need some tight ends. We do not have tight ends. This is like Steve Adazio all over again, who just did not care about tight ends. I don't understand. Franklin, he seems like a great kid, and he definitely tries very hard, but we need someone who can catch the ball. Takas couldn't catch the ball. That Gordner kid had that great catch. I think was that against Florida State? It was against someone, but
yeah.
It's like we don't have tight ends. We don't have tight ends that are, great blockers in the running game, and we don't have tight ends that can catch. We don't have either of the two. That's something that they need to address going forward. It's like on offense, there's a lot. I mean, defensively too, and I'm sure we'll get into that where our linebacker core is looking very thin next year. But offensively, you need linemen, you need tight ends, and you need receivers. That's 3 out of the 5 groups. So they got a lot of. Hafley better be in the portal, like as we're doing this podcast. I hope Hafley is like doing work right now.
Phone calls. Yeah.
He needs to.
He did well. He did well last year with Tommy touchdowns from Central Florida. Oh yeah, he did well with Kai out of Western Kentucky, and a guy that kind of falls on the radar. I think George Rooks out of Michigan played pretty well for BC. When he got the opportunity to get snaps.
Yeah.
But we saw already 2 decommits before we got on the show. Right before the show, we had 2 more decommit, 2 more guys going to the portal. So we're losing recruits, and we already got 3 guys in the portal. Salah went in, and then we had Josh Hardy earlier in the day. What is it going to be an onslaught here? Do you think that it's just going to slow down, or you think in the next 2-3 days we're going to see a lot more guys?
I think it's one. You can go.
No, I was just saying, I think it's one of those things. You probably will see more names, but a lot of these kids might just be kind of, dipping a toe in the water. Like, don't be surprised if Salah's back. He's such a kind of a cornerstone for that team. I'm sure it might have been one of those things where Hafley said, dip your toe in, so you can get some of that money that we can't provide. Because God knows BC will not be ponying up, money for most guys like other programs can and will. But I do think you're going to see more names. But I also do think you might see some names coming back, at least hopefully. Otherwise, they are screwed.
You guys mentioned tight ends. And I follow him because my son has diabetes, and he's a local kid, and he's got diabetes. Caleb Fourier just entered the portal. Christian Fourier's son. He went to Colorado, didn't get much playing time. What do you think the chances are of him coming, to BC? And they're just hitting the ground running, because I'm hearing he's a super athlete.
So let me throw another name at you real quick. Tyler Neville from Harvard. He's
Okay.
already been offered by BC. Someone like those two kids is what they need. George Sakis, I personally, I do think he was pretty good. Just injury prone, he couldn't stay on the field. That's 2 straight years now where
Right.
he got breathed on and he got hurt. So they need to find tougher tight ends. Is what they need. They haven't had one, honestly, since Hunter Long. And that's a long time now. We're talking 2018, 2019. But you're right. Fortier, Neville, a big body, something like that. They need kids that can stretch the field. I'd be interested in either one. But whatever it is, they need at least 2 in the portal this year.
They have the 3-star Jackson Santiago coming in this year as a freshman, so we'll see what happens there. But it usually takes a year or 2 before a tight end gets acclimated into
It's
any
like
system.
2 for a tight end in college football.
And then 3 in the NFL. It's the way it goes. It seems like this year is the only year where it's kind of like breaking stride. But all right, we touched on a few things here. I wanted to talk about. This is gross. It's really, really bad. Who, what, when, why? How does BC's game plan go into fixing this defense? Elijah Jones' absence in the secondary, it was a huge hit for them, right? I mean, once he went down, they skyrocketed in points allowed. 91st in the country, points per game, 29.6. They were 123rd in the country with yards per play at 6.4. And we talked about this multiple times. They couldn't stop a wet paper bag, nosebleed, grandma crossing the street when it came to the red zone. 91.8% they allowed in the red zone. They got nobody in a linebacker that's coming back. I believe Cam Arnold has 1 more year of eligibility. Will he come back? Will he hit the portal? Will he try his luck in the NFL? We don't know. Vinny DePalma's done on his 1,444th year run of being a linebacker for the Eagles, which it speaks volumes, not to knock DePalma because he was the best linebacker we had, but they had to go with a 6th-year senior in that room, right? When they had a couple of kids that I thought were going to be pretty well. Blackwell never really came around to it, right? Like
Allen.
Yeah, like it was super frustrating. Owen McGowan, right? We heard Hafley talk about McGowan multiple times. He had to kick out 7 tackles and probably got a total of about 80 snaps all year. That was the thing with Coach that kind of pissed me off a little bit. I love that he'll talk to us about things, answer any question you want, but boy, does he put the lipstick on a pig, right? Like he will just say things like, bro, I'm not going to UConn and going to give them the game plan, what you told me on a Zoom meeting, homie. Like, you don't have to fluff up Owen McGowan to me. If he ain't going to play, then don't talk about him, But when I hear you talk for weeks and weeks and weeks about a guy like that, a guy like, Blackwell, and then they don't get time, and you're hurt and struggling in that department, how do we fix that? How do we fix this core? There's only so much you can do in the portal. We see what happened with Colorado. You go get 70-something guys in the portal, and you're going to get 4 wins, right? Because it takes time for these guys to gel. How do we fix this? How do we fix the youth that we have and put them in the right position, especially when you're supposed to have a defensive-minded coach?
Short answer is portal. Look, it is what it is, right? Like, if you need immediate talent, that's where you're going to find it. Now, to his credit, I covered McGowan a bunch at Catholic Memorial. The kid was a stud. He was supposed to develop. To your point, though, with a defensive coaching staff, he has not. Now he caught a touchdown pass here. It was on offense, so I guess something. But you're right. It's and not to completely defend them, losing Bryce Steele to a health scare, that was math. Yeah. He was by far the linebacker, along with Arnold. So losing Bryce Steele, I think, was huge. Sorry, you guys still have me?
Yep. Yeah, I got you.
Oh,
sorry, my bad. I cut off there for a minute. Bryce Steele was their biggest loss by far. His was a health, a personal health issue. The Elijah Jones thing in the secondary, from what I've gathered, from sources away, it was the right move from Hafley. I'll leave it at that. It was not injury related, something off the field, and he absolutely should have been removed from the team if what I heard was true. But again, you've only had a kid like Amari Jackson behind him and nobody else. So the depth is an issue. We all kind of, for years, I praised him and his recruiting, but the player development part, that is their biggest issue. They can find talent, they can't develop them for squat right now, and that's the biggest thing. The other problem was, look, again, we keep saying, how nice the coaching staff is, promoting from within and not looking nationally, both on offense and defense. Probably shouldn't have done it because it was a lot of the same philosophy. And again, a lot of the same guys who were hearing the same messages, not developing. So to your point, it's not about the actual skill for me, because I do think they find talent. It's the development that's the huge issue that needs to be looked at in the offseason.
I'm glad you brought up the Elijah Jones thing, because I think that's absolute horseshit. Okay. Well, I've got aware of what went down and why he needs to be removed from the team. But you can't remove him from the team and then put that kid on a pedestal at every freaking community thing that BC football is doing. Oh, you're handing out turkeys? Elijah Jones is there. Oh, you're doing a community event? Elijah Jones is there. You're putting out a new piece on the media? Or you're putting Elijah Jones in the thing. If the kid's bad enough not to play because he did something, don't use him, because you used him for the last 4 weeks of the season after you told him he couldn't play. That went up my ass sideways. I didn't like that.
And the other thing with Elijah Jones too is, I mean, realistically, he's the only defensive back that has progressed under Hafley since he got there, and he wasn't even a Hafley recruit. I don't know what that says. It's kind of goes to what you said, Kevin, about player development. That's just something that they've just seriously struggled with being able to do. It's like they get the talent in the door, whether it's recruiting or through the portal, but they really have not been able to help any of these kids like find the next level or find their footing here. Elijah Jones was like the one outlier, but if you look at the rest of the secondary, because the other thing too is like with all the recruiting classes, it's been very secondary heavy, where they bring in a lot of secondary recruits.
DB coach.
None of them have really panned out except for him.
Yeah.
I don't know what to make of that, but I mean, it does say a lot. So it's, from that, you think we would have a lockdown secondary, but then we have probably the most egregious crowning to ever happen in organized football history. Yeah, that's probably the most notable thing to come out of the secondary in the last 4 years. So
targeted. All right. I got one last question before I ask you guys to give me your most positive moment or memorable moment from the year. And here's my question. We're driving down the road 10 minutes. Hopefully we're all there for the game to witness it at the Fenway Bowl, if they somehow can make it to that game. Does a win in the Fenway Bowl make Hafley safe for one more year? A, and B, if Ryan Day loses his job at Ohio State, are you picking up the phone right away and giving him a call to bring him in here? What's the bag, and are the boosters ready to pay?
I'll go first and just say that Hafley's already safe. Kevin talked about it earlier. They want 6 wins in a bowl game, right? Hafley did that. They're going to get the payout for the bowl game. Mm-hmm. He's already good. It would have taken a 2-9, 3 whatever 2 or 3 win season in order for him to really get canned. That 5-game winning streak really did him a lot of justice. So I think he is safe. There was reports coming out that Dan Mullen had talked with Blake James. They might have talked, but I don't think it was anything substantial.
Eddie O was there, right? Eddie O was in the crowd.
Yeah. But I think the thing with Blake James is I think Blake James would love to bring in his own coach, but we got to understand that we have Father Leahy, we have the board of trustees. They are not paying to let Hafley sit at home on their dime. Like, it's just not happening. In their eyes, he did his job. He got them a bowl game, right? And the way that they're going to spin it is that Hafley's got this team bowl eligible 3 out of the 4 years he's been here. What's the big deal? So they don't even have to. And my one last point, and then I'll shut up. when Adazio had got fired, Adazio had won his 6th game, got dapped up by Martin Jarmond, and then got fired the next day. And I was like, that's the coldest thing I ever saw, first of all. But he got fired the following day. The reports were released on that Monday. It's Monday now. We haven't heard anything. Hafley's safe. If you were going to fire your coach, you would have done it now, and you would have gone and picked up, a Dan Mullen or Ryan Day. Ryan Day's not going anywhere either, but someone like that. Like, this is the time to go get a coach. Like, Mike Elko's off the board now. Like, not that he was coming here, but this is when the coaching carousel goes on. So they're not going to fire him after the bowl game. And, he's already safe for next year, like it or not.
Yeah, no shot. I thought Miami, the loss the other day, was bad enough where if they were going to do it, it was this weekend. I honestly believe we were about to hear something Saturday or Sunday. I thought it was that bad. Once we heard nothing today, you're right. He's safe. They're not going to pay. Now, look, you're right about Blake James. He probably very much wants his own head coach, and given the amount of money that campus has, if they really wanted to do it, they could buy out Hafley. It's a drop in the bucket. They won't. They absolutely won't. He'll be on the hot seat next year. I do believe that, because then you're now looking at year 2 of the extension, not the first year of it. You can kind of sell that to people who you need to sign off on the check. But no, he's not going anywhere, no matter what happens at Fenway. In terms of Ryan Day, look, the story it would be awesome. Obviously, not only him coming back, but him taking over for one of his former assistants who crapped the bed. I mean, that's just outstanding theater for all of us. But no shot in hell. So I think we're running it back. I think we're looking at another 500 team next year. The schedule is actually harder, but no, just it's status quo. And again, until Father Leahy either leaves or people finally have a difficult conversation for once on that campus and decide, we want to be competitive in the ACC more than just 6 or 7 wins, we're going to keep running this back every single year. It is what it is. BC is a stepping stone job, and Hafley, whenever his contract is up, he'll be gone. But until then, he'll step back. He'll make his $3 million a year and be perfectly content going, 6-6, 7-5.
I gotta agree. I don't see them paying. They don't want to pay. But I'll tell you something right now. You want to change things out there. You want to make improvements. You're gonna have to do something, right? Because people aren't gonna pay to improve things. Boosters aren't gonna give you extra money to improve things if you're just squeaking by every year, right? But here's my thing about next year that I want to just put out there. This is gonna be my positive Paulie moment of the show. There's gonna be a lot of first-time QBs in this division next year. Okay, Drake May's going to the show. Jordan Travis is gone. I don't think Cade Klubnik is staying in Clemson. I think him and Dabo are cashed out. And I don't think Dabo's going anywhere. So I think Cade's going to hit the portal. He's probably going to hear that in the next 48 hours. Riley Leonard's going to Texas A&M. You can put that one in a bag, bro. Like that's happening. Max Johnson didn't hit the portal for no reason. They opening up the doors for their guys. Riley Leonard's going to Texas A&M. You're going to have I mean, Grayson Loftus ain't bad, but he's a freshman. Castellanos got more experience under his belt. Castellanos going to next year is probably going to be a top 3 experienced QB in the ACC.
That dude Plummer's not going to be at Louisville anymore either.
That's what I'm saying. You're looking at Tommy Touchdowns as probably being a top 3 experienced QB in that class. I don't know what they can do around him, but if they for some reason can put the pieces around him, maybe that schedule isn't as hard as everybody thought. Yeah, the schedule looked hard going against the competition of what the lineup looks like right now. Those lineups aren't going to be there the same going into next year.
I do not like the Missouri at Missouri, nor do I like the Michigan State.
No, listen, the Michigan State game I don't like is Jonathan Smith's going to bring a whole slew of dudes, and they're going to be really, really good. When Kirby Moore, the offensive guru, gets an OC job or a head coaching job somewhere else, Eli Drinkwater is going to be Eli Drinkwater that he's been for the past 10 years. Kirby Moore is saving that guy. Look at what he did this year with Luther Burden and Theo Weiss. And the year before, when he wasn't the guy, Luther Burden was barely utilized. It's the same kid, right? Like, you just got a guy who knows how to use him. Kellen Moore's a great OC, right? In the NFL, his kid brother knows what he's doing. There's a lot of factors go into it. I know the schedule looks like it's a little bit more difficult because you got the SEC games and shit. But I think we might be all right if they could put the pieces to the puzzle together. And as far as Father Leahy, man, he's just waiting until that ACC contract's close to 1 year up. And then he's going to figure out what he's going to do then. Right now, he's getting that free money, right? That ACC money. You know, he's not stupid. He's not trying to be in a 2-pack, right? And out there getting that baby money. He's gotten guaranteed money to the program. So why am I going to do anything stupid? I'll just ride out the 6 wins for Hafley, see where we're at. When his contract's up, the ACC contract will be up. They're probably going to go to realignment again. And then maybe I'll make the splash if I have to make the splash because I'm getting pushed somewhere else. All right, we're going to wrap this up. We're at 45 minutes. Kevin, give me your probably positive moment of the year.
I can't think of one off the top of my head. That's how sad it was. Holy crap. I guess the comeback against Virginia at home, but even then, it was the ugliest first half of football any of us had seen. You give up the Hail Mary right before halftime, and you turn things around. I guess that game. Yeah, I mean, how many are there? Like, it's just every win was an ugly win. You know, it was a grinded out slugfest of a game. I'm generally like trying to rack my brain as we talk right now. That's the first thing that comes to mind is the comeback against UVA to get to 500. I think it was.
On a QB hadn't played in 3 games, too, right? Musket hadn't played in 3 games, and they put him back in, and he looked like Troy Aikman.
Correct. Yeah, man, that's it. The one off the top of my head I can come up with right away. The fact you had to come back from UVA, I guess.
Brett?
I mean, Syracuse, they were bowl eligible and partied in the locker room and got T-shirts for it.
You seem super excited about
that was like right before the complacency set in. So I feel like that was good for them, even though that I had a friend who texted me he's like a big football guy, not a BC guy, and he was like, dude, I'm never watching this team ever again. He's like, this is like 1940 football. He's like, why do you watch this? And I was like, oh my God. I was like embarrassed.
Yeah, how do you respond to that?
I was a little bit embarrassed.
Sorry, bud. So for me, there was 2 moments. The Madden play. Because at that moment I had hope. When Castellanos dropped back, he probably ran around 50 yards in a matter of 20 yards. But that moment I had hope. I said, okay, in a game of kind of chaos, this guy kind of kept the flashlight worth of light and hope on. So that, and the fact that they stood toe-to-toe with a pretty much healthy Florida State team, when everybody thought we were going to get smoked like a Snoop Dogg blunt, that to me, I'll take that one. I'll take that moral victory any day of the week, man. We were in it to the end. I honestly thought it would be over by halftime. We looked at each other and we were like, and they were in it.
Program record penalties too. It was awesome.
18 of them, right? 18 of them.
Yeah. So I just thought of one more. That Holy Cross game, the lightning delay. I know it was Holy Cross fans, but the BC fans running on the field, and not just because it gave me a viral video, although that's basically my main reason. That entire day, what a weird but cool atmosphere that place turned into.
Yeah.
And again, I know it was Holy Cross, but just the local rivalry and just the stands, you could feel something there that day. Yeah. And, again, we've talked about it countless times. There's no energy in that building on a weekly basis. None. There's no atmosphere from 9 a.m. through the end of the game. There's nothing there. So when you do get those, and to your point, the Florida State game, when you get those moments of energy, you do remember them. So I'll throw the Holy Cross one in there too. But just kind of encompassing everything we've talked about, they need to fix the atmosphere there too.
Yeah.
Just the overall game day presentation is trash. And it doesn't help when you have a stadium in freaking downtown Newton.
Bro,
So
can we get rid of the Bob's Burger, sumo splash thing in the middle
Correct.
of the first quarter? Like the gimmicks,
Yeah.
bro. I don't need it. I understand the T-shirts thing. That's
It's like-
everybody does that. That's cool.
It's like minor league baseball.
Yeah, I'm not watching. What is it? The Savannah Bananas, dude. Like, I'm not watching that baseball team. I'm watching BC, and for me, I'll always I think Flutie, I think Matt Ryan, I think AJ Dillon and Luke Kuechly and guys like that. Like that put the team on their back and cared. And I'm not saying these guys don't. Tommy seems like he does. He's just really inexperienced, and I don't know if it's the robot things that they tell him to say, and what he tries to do on his own way. Maybe he comes across like the wrong way, but I think the kid means well at heart, and I think he is the future of this program. I don't think that they put him in the best position to win. I mean, the kid doesn't have the strongest arm, hasn't developed pure passing skills, and you call him shitty ass plays for him. So that to me doesn't help. Yeah, there was moments where I'm like, okay, like there's no way in God's name they should have lost to NIU. There's no way in God's name. I know Sluka's a dog. There's no way that Holy Cross should have been within 10 points of BC. We said that when I walked in that game, we said over at the half, right? Is that what we said? We're going home early today. Over at the half.
I know. I told you it was going to be close.
Oh,
that Holy Cross team is good. You're right. As an FBS school, they should win that game by at least 10 to 14 points.
Yeah.
And I will say, Holy Cross, they weren't the same Holy Cross. But you're right. Sluka there's a reason. I'll throw this out there. Don't be surprised if him and Bob Chesney both end up at Syracuse. I'll throw that out there right now.
Okay.
That game, you're right. They should not have lost, and they didn't. But I wasn't surprised it was that close. The NIU game is inexcusable. That shouldn't happen.
No.
The Pitt one 2 weeks ago, inexcusable.
Yeah.
That shouldn't have happened.
That one was great.
Yeah.
But the Syracuse W was gross, bro. Gross. This was a Syracuse team that had cashed out for 5 weeks. Just look at what happened. The game before, Garrett Schrader was on defense doing backflips in a game, bro. Dino Babbitt didn't give a shit about them no more. Nobody on that team gave a shit about anything, and you barely beat them. Barely. Like that. Like you should have had 2-3 more victories. You should have had 2 or 3 W's that should have been more convincing than you had. You shouldn't have let teams in. You shouldn't have had to go to overtime to beat a couple teams here. Like the biggest takeaway, I will say, the negative thing for me, the biggest thing is they played typical BC ball for the last 7 years of we play down to our competition. And that is why they caught those L's to those shitty ass teams.
It goes back to the atmosphere for me. If you're an ACC kid and you're getting recruited and you walk into that stadium, it screams high school football.
Yeah, you're walking from one class to the gymnasium, dude.
Correct. And again, it's all encompassing. That's why the portal it's huge for them. But don't be surprised when they can't get that upper echelon talent. Just look around. Look around at what they're selling, kids. You can have the best staff in the world, but if you don't have the facilities these days, and they sure as hell don't, there's always so much talent this team can bring in. So they might be just sort of stuck where they're at unless they can go get a huge name coach. And even then, again, it's a stepping stone job.
Go get Jimbo, because when you get fired, right, you need that 1 or 2 years where you got to eat shit. I sucked for so long, right? Look, Bobby Petrino, all these guys, they got to take that 1 year, go hide in the corner, cry like Ace Ventura in the shower, just for a little bit, and then woosah, take that one job away, and then go. You bring Jimbo in, you want to bring people in, you want to utilize the portal, you want to maximize your effort, bring Jimbo in. Bring a guy like that in. Pay them 1 year, but it'll change your culture at BC for 10. I just don't know if they got enough sack to do it.
They don't.
All right, boys. This has been good. Brett, let the people at home know where they can find your stuff, what you got coming down the pipeline.
EaglesDaily.com, football, basketball, hockey. And we have a basketball podcast on the Believe Network that will be dropping in the next couple of weeks. So I'll keep you updated on that as well.
I know you got a revamped website coming out there too, so be on the lookout for that. I grind like a son of a bitch, but I don't know if anybody grinds more than this guy. Kevin, whenever you do close your eyes to sleep, it's not very much, but tell the people what you got going on, because I know you got things going on 24/7.
Unfortunately, we are still covering the Patriots. So plenty of Patriots coverage at anyfootballjournal.com. BC stuff, high school, college, high school in 6 states. MIA Super Bowls are this weekend, so we'll have those covered. And Army Navy is also in 2 weeks now already. So
Fast.
we'll have plenty of stuff there. It's crazy, man. Anyfootballjournal.com, and then Eagle Action for Rivals for all BC stuff as well. But anyfootballjournal.com is where you'll find most of my stuff.
Listen, the season's coming to an end. But in the offseason, I don't stop. We'll probably bring both these gentlemen back on in the offseason. We'll talk things that happen if and when we do get guys in the portal, or if we do sign a recruit or something. I'm gonna bring these two studs back on, and we're gonna talk about it. It's been a mediocre year. We just got to stay positive and hope we can, climb, as Eagles Daily would say, soar on to the next horizon, right? I'm Nino Brown. It's the CFB Nation. It's been a good one. We out.